Welcome to The Married Therapist,
a relationship podcast
hosted by us, Luis and Amber Simide.
This podcast is all about love, conflict, and the gray areas.
If you like what you hear, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Now let's get to the show.
Welcome back to our podcast. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about the Manosphere, the Red Pill community, and all that entails. We recently started diving into this.
Yeah.
Based off of a conversation that we had with a couple of friends, and it's been enlightening and incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
So, as a man, start us off. What are your thoughts about this whole topic? And can you explain it for those who may not understand?
Yeah, so the manosphere in general is kind of the name of the society, the culture of this quote unquote movement, if you want to call it that. It is this like hyper masculine, more traditional values, misogynistic in general kind of way of being that has kind of taken over really with a lot of young men. And for me, this whole thing has been extremely frustrating to see because I see remnants of it and evidence of it in the teens that I work with. And it's really sad because I know there was so much progress to kind of dismantle some of this toxic masculinity, these problematic ideologies that men held with this patriarchal society that we have. And it has started to kind of reverse a lot of those things. So as I've seen this start to develop, I've started to see it really grow, and it's starting to resonate with a lot of guys. And that's a large reason why Trump won, to bring politics into this, because he got a lot of these young men with these toxic ideologies to really go for him, because Trump himself is kind of the embodiment of a lot of these things, right? And so this isn't, a dialogue about Trump, but it is indicative of what has happened politically because of everything that's happening as a society within male culture and toxic masculinity and manosphere, all of that. So with millennials, particularly mid to younger millennials, and then also Gen Z, we saw it really big with increasing in this activism towards gender equality and dismantling social norms and things like that. So within those generations, you started to see a lot of these things happen. But then as Gen Alpha started to come up, they started to really be influenced by a lot of these problematic ideologies. And
Andrew Tate.
Yeah, I got the Andrew Tates and Joe Rogans and things like that. And I know Joe Rogan has kind of gone back and forth, but in general, he's been a big part of this whole movement too. And in general, as a society, we tend to swing in opposite directions. One generation will be one way, and then the next generation will kind of swing in the opposite direction. So that has happened historically, but I think now it's becoming a lot more extreme. And the ramifications of that swinging has become a lot more severe, I think, as a society. So that's kind of where we're at now. We're starting to see the pendulum swing the opposite direction, where these male roles, traditional gender roles, are becoming a lot more not just common, but sought out and seen as the quote unquote right way to be, or the ideal way to be. And to be clear, we're not against traditional gender roles if that's what you naturally want to do. Like if you're naturally into that, that's fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. But to say that this is the right way to be and to wish everybody did that and to force people to do that, that's where the problems start to arise. That's kind of where this becomes problematic, is because they don't just have these ideologies, but they are actively pushing for these ideologies to be pervasive as a society. And they are treating people as if these ideologies are truth. So that's kind of the big overarching beef with it. But I know you've been consuming a lot of content regarding this. And so what have you seen, and what are your general thoughts about this whole ideology?
It just breaks my heart.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts off with wanting to be confident, wanting to just get some tips and tricks for dating, nutrition advice, fitness advice. So they're lured in, and then it's like, okay, here's more information about what this is all about. Now, in order to be a high value man.
Oh my gosh, that term is so ridiculous.
You need to desire a high value woman.
Mhm.
And it looks like this: a woman who is submissive,
Mhm.
who's not going to talk back, who is traditional, who's going to just stay home and be in her feminine energy, taking care of the house and the kids. And it goes to some extremes though, where some of these people are saying like women shouldn't even vote anymore.
Yeah.
And women shouldn't even really have an opinion when it comes to the relationship and making large decisions. And it just gets very, very harmful because it's all about power. It's all about control. And that is wildly inappropriate
Mm-hmm.
for a relationship. And like you said, with any kind of movement, there are extremes. So there are some people who naturally just want to be traditional, and that's fine. But with this whole manosphere, specifically this red pill community, it just gets really scary
Mm-hmm.
for all involved.
Yeah. And so you introduced this red pill ideology. So with the red pill, for those of you guys who don't know, back in 1999, The Matrix came out, very big movie back in the day. And that was a main concept within the movie. They had a red pill and a blue pill. And if Neo, the main character, took the red pill, his eyes would be opened, that he would see the realities for what it is. And if he chose the blue pill, he would stay naive, kind of like an ignorance is bliss mindset. And so this red pill community is this group of guys who are essentially saying they have seen the light. They see reality for what it is. And it is this woman-centered world that they're just fighting against, that they want to restore the quote unquote order of things and get back to the way things are quote unquote supposed to be. So that's kind of this whole red pill culture, right? Like they feel like everyone who doesn't believe this way is stuck in this blue pill world, that they just have wool over their eyes. They're just sheep, right? That's all this mindset. And so that plays into a lot of these conspiracy theories and this whole other world that I didn't even realize was out there until we started digging a little bit more. And it's like, oh my gosh, there are some really problematic things that these people think. And I really started to wonder, like, how did we get here? What happened as a society where men felt the need to find something like this, and not just find it, but it resonated with so many guys that it has really taken off as a movement and started to shift culture in a really problematic way. So what do you think happened? Like, how do you think we got here?
Well, I know in the 70s, the feminist movement became really popular. Women started saying, hold on, wait, I don't want to just be a secretary or
Right.
to be a homemaker. I want to be educated. I
Mhm.
want to be able to go to school and have a career and maybe not have kids or just go on an unconventional path. And guys didn't like that,
Mhm.
right? It was a threat to the patriarchy for so long. That has been the norm, and it's been great. And it has served men, specifically white men, really well. So over time, things started to pop up, like men's rights activists and things like that, because it was like, well, hold on, like we've got issues too. We've got needs too. It's not just about you, which is very reminiscent of Black Lives Matter and
Right.
how a lot of people didn't like that. And they were like, all lives matter. It's like, we're not talking about that. There's a threat on Black lives. And
Yeah.
so we're drawing attention to that. That's what women were saying. There's a threat on us. Like we weren't even able as women to get our own credit card or to get our own apartment in the 70s without our husband's consent.
Yeah.
So we were saying, this is a problem. We're drawing attention to it, especially because I saw how successful the civil rights movement was. It was just like, okay, let's actually talk about, some of these other things. And it was like, whoa, not you getting some confidence and
Right.
kind of popping up and rebelling. We gotta put you in your place.
Yeah. And earlier you said they didn't want to just be secretaries or homemakers. To be clear, obviously not, we don't think that that's a bad thing to be a secretary or a homemaker. They started to think that they didn't want to be pigeonholed into that.
Yeah. I'm speaking specifically about the women who were at the forefront of these movements. I know Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem were pivotal leaders, and it was just like, yeah, I don't really want that. You know, there are a lot of women who weren't a part of that movement because they did value that, which they're entitled to. But it's just, we're all different.
Right.
And sometimes it's something that doesn't really make sense for someone. They're like, no, I really actually want to be a doctor, or I want to be an engineer. I want to be a scientist, and I'd like to be able to have that right and go to school.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I think the feminist movement had a huge part to play in all of this, right? Because, like you said, women started to realize, like, hey, we deserve the same rights that men have, right? And on paper, women have the same rights, but in practice, they don't, right? And I think a lot of people get that mixed up because a lot of men that are part of this movement, they are very much like, what rights do women not have? And it's like, legally, they have the same rights in general. But as a society, we see the statistics. They're not paid the same as men still to this day for the same jobs. There are a lot of discrepancies in men versus women. There is still a lot of privilege in being a man. Like, we can go down the street and not worried that we're going to get jumped or raped or grabbed, right? Like, we can do that. I know we had that conversation early on in our relationship because I lived in downtown San Antonio and I would go on walks all the time, like at night. And I was fine with it because I knew nothing would really happen to me. But for you, you were just like, you could never even imagine doing that because that's scary for a woman by herself to be walking at night in downtown. And that's a small glimpse of privilege, right? That we have. Not saying that I'm better than you or anything like that. It's just a reality. I think that's where a lot of people get mixed up with what privilege even is.
Yeah, and I could do that, but for me, it will come at a cost.
Right.
I'm only 5 feet tall and I look younger than my age. So I'm a target. And for me, I do feel that anxiety. When I was going from the parking lot to your house, I could do that.
Yeah.
But I was saying that I'm not comfortable just randomly walking by myself very late at night downtown just because, like, for leisure.
Yeah.
Like, that's not anything that I would enjoy because I would be too worried.
Yeah.
And it's not even necessarily like I think someone's gonna jump and rape me immediately, but even just the stairs or like catcalling or like stalking or something like that. Like, oh, she's by herself. Where is she going? Those are all very real things that a lot of us women have to think about. So it's like, I'd rather not deal with that. I'm good.
Yeah. So again, legally, you're allowed to walk down the street, obviously, but from a social standpoint, it's just not as safe for you as it is for me. So that's an aside. But yeah, I think the feminist movement had a lot to do with it because they started to get right, started to get confident. They started to move into these traditionally male-dominated spaces. And one of the quotes that I feel like resonates with me, not only in this conversation, but also in racial conversations, is equality feels like oppression to the privileged class. So if you are used to having all this privilege where people that are oppressed don't normally get to your level, when you see them start to rise up to your level, you start to feel like I'm being oppressed. And the reality is you're not being oppressed at all. Nothing is changing in your life. You just have to actually compete for your job now, or you actually have to be good at what you do, right? Which, like, what a concept. You don't just get it just for being a man anymore. You don't just get it just for being white or straight or whatever it is. And so I think that's a lot of it. They're seeing a lot of these women coming into power. You're seeing a lot of these women getting these high power jobs and they feel threatened by it. And so what do? They fight against it. And so that's just kind of a natural thing that as a society we do. But I think that's playing a huge part in this whole movement because they are seeing so many women doing things that were traditionally done by men, and that makes them uncomfortable.
And we're just asking for a seat at the table.
Right.
That was what feminism was about. It's like, hey, I feel like there should be equality between the genders. I feel like we should also have the same access to all the things as you all have. That's it.
Yeah.
We weren't trying to make the world a matriarchal world or anything like that. It's just like, I'd like to have, I've been getting crumbs. I'd like to have more.
Yeah, I like to have a full meal too.
Yes. What a concept.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the same conversation that people have, like you mentioned earlier with the Black Lives Matter. People think Black people in this country are getting all these privileges now, or minorities getting all these privileges now. And it's like, no, they're not getting privileges. They're just getting what they need to have the same things that were historically had by white people. It looks like more advantages, but in practice, they're just getting to where you're at now. And it's not because they were inherently or biologically inferior by any means. It's just society has put them in a specific place that there need to be other things done to get the things that other people have had for years and centuries.
Yeah, I mean, because of the systemic oppression, we're just trying to recover from that and again get more than crumbs.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot of this conversation is the difference between equity and equality. The privileged class, they want equality where everyone gets the same thing, but that's not really fairness, right? Equity is everyone getting what they need to have the same access to things,
Right.
right? So I saw this really great visual we would look at when I was a teacher of there was a fence and three people looking over the fence, three people of different heights. And equality was giving each of them the same height box to stand on to look over the fence. And so obviously the tallest person could see over the fence clearly, but the shortest person still couldn't see over the fence. Whereas equity was giving the shorter person 3 boxes and giving the taller person no boxes, but they were all still able to see over the fence. So again, it's giving people what they need to have access to the things that everyone already has access to.
Yeah.
And then I saw one that went a little bit further that said justice was removing the fence altogether. So I think that's the ultimate goal, right? Is to remove the barriers, period. But I know that's not where we're at right now. And so I think just giving people what they need to get the same access to things is where we're at.
Yeah, I remember seeing that in another one about like the racetrack
Oh, yeah.
in grad school. And that really opened up my eyes
Mhm.
because some of us are not able to start at the same line as others.
Right.
And all we're asking is to be bumped up so we can all be at the same starting line together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of these things are not that old. A lot of these rights and privileges are not that old. Like you said, it wasn't even until the 70s, mid 70s, like 1974, that women were even able to have their own credit cards in their name or get a house loan in their name or even open a bank account in their name without a male cosigner or without male permission to have that happen. And so that wasn't that long ago. That was 50 years ago, right? And so you can imagine there are people who believe that that shouldn't have happened that are still alive today, that are still running our country, right? So our country is full of very old decision makers that are still affecting society today. So to say that, women have all the rights and all the stuff is just simply not true at this point. They have, yes, the legal rights on paper, but the ideologies are still out there. There's still a lot of mindsets that are against women. There's still a lot of systems that are against women. And there's just really no getting around that. And so there's this fight to be equal as the genders or the sexes is very much still relevant. And so for these guys that are part of this manosphere to say that women have more privilege now, it's like, yeah, they have more privilege than they used to, but it's still not more privilege than you, right? So I don't know. I just think is a very reactive movement. It's not really one based in truth. It's more so based in fear.
Yeah, agreed.
And so within this movement, there's a lot of terms, red pill being one of the main kind of ideologies. But what are some of the other terms that are part of this movement?
So a high value man, which is a man perceived as socially dominant, wealthy, confident, disciplined, attractive, or powerful. So that's how guys perceive themselves. So of course they're in pursuit of that when it comes to women. But what is tricky is that they want perfection.
Right.
They have an inflated sense of self. So oftentimes looks like narcissistic traits. And they're just kind of folding their arms across, being like, okay, you have to be a 10. You have to do this and do that and do that. And only then will I welcome you into my life as a high value woman.
Right. Which is so, they want a trophy wife is what they want. Someone who's going to be quiet and just look pretty and do whatever they want.
Yeah. I'm like, you need a maid.
Right.
Also, no, you need like a robot. You need a
Right.
blow up doll. I don't know. But yeah, it's like you have to look virginal. That's another thing too. Like they ask about your body count.
Yeah.
And so if you have even one, you are soiled, you are bad, you
Right.
are impure and therefore not desirable. And also they believe that everything ceases to exist after a woman is 30.
Yeah.
So you have to be under 30, damn near a virgin, who's obedient, compliant, most likely does not work because they have to be the provider in every way. Someone who's submissive will listen to every single thing, not have an opinion about anything.
Or sometimes have an opinion, but ultimately doesn't make the decision.
Right. So it's bizarre and oftentimes doesn't work because that's not reality.
And so a lot of the things that you've already mentioned, it makes sense why this culture is so pervasive in the gym bro, finance bro world, and even in a lot of like religious circles, right? Because of the whole virginal, pure aspect where the man is the head of the household. A lot of these things are very closely tied. And so you see this ideology really taking root within a lot of these subcultures. And so it's interesting how aligned a lot of these things are.
Yeah. Another one close to high value man is alpha male, a supposedly dominant, respected, sexually successful man, often contrasted with a beta male, which is a man seen as passive, weak, emotionally needy, or lacking status.
Oh, goodness. And it's like, God forbid, there are different personality types, right? Not everyone is this like dominant, I need to lead everything type of person. And if that's not your natural temperament, you're automatically put in this category as this weak, feeble man. And it's like, what? This is how I'm wired. I don't want to lead this Fortune 500 company. That's, I just want to be a teacher. I just want to live a simple life.
Yeah.
I love my wife, like it's just problematic in so many ways. It's frustrating.
It's this weird obsession with success professionally, financially, physically, mentally, got to be the best of the best every single day, no days off.
Yeah.
These guys talk about waking up at 4 a.m. and doing an ice bath and running 20 miles and eating fish and asparagus and fresh fruits and vegetables and then closing $1 million deals at work. It's just so incredibly extreme.
I know.
Who is living life like that?
I know. And are those things inherently wrong? No, they're great. Like if you can do that, that's awesome. But I think it's the why behind it that's so problematic. They're seeing it as like, this is my worth.
Yes.
And this is what makes a man a man.
Right. If I do these things, I will be valuable. I will be someone who is worthy of good things.
Right.
And we'll get into the clinical aspect of it later. But most of the time, if you have that kind of mindset, you're doomed for failure.
Yeah.
Because we're human.
Yes, we are.
We're not little robots. Another one is a simp, S-I-M-P. A man mocked for being overly attentive, submissive, or desperate for female approval.
Yeah, and it's such a problematic thing because I think a lot of what they interpret as being a simp is essentially just being a supportive, emotionally mature man, right? So someone who listens to their wife's needs and honors their wife and does things that considers his wife, they see that as a simp, that you're, quote unquote, whipped. It's just not that. Because you're not dominating her, all of a sudden you're a simp. It's like, nope, I just respect my wife.
And that's you.
Yeah. I'm sure I would be considered a simp in a lot of these circles. And I'm like...
But I love that. And
yeah.
I need that. And if you were anything other than that, if you were a quote unquote alpha male or this like high value man, in these terms, I would not be attracted to that.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't have worked. And
Mhm.
I've mentioned that to you many, many times.
Yeah.
Like, no, I love that you are so loving and kind, compassionate, emotionally intelligent,
Mhm.
generous. Like, what a concept.
I know.
I have always said, like, I don't want a bad boy. I don't want that chaotic life. No way. Give me, before you, I would say, like, give me the boring guy.
Mhm.
Give me the sweet guy. I will take that in a heartbeat. I feel like the other path is just a headache. And I dealt with that shit
Yeah.
in my previous marriage, and I ran so far from that. I was like,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
And I know there are women out there who do like that. They do like this dominant man who just gets all of his needs met and just like kind of dominates the whole relationship. I don't understand that. I think there's other things happening clinically, but we'll definitely get into that later. But yeah, I know there are people who do like that. And again, there's nothing inherently wrong with someone being dominant or having a dominant personality, but it's the why behind it that is problematic when they see it as this is how we should be. This is how to be a man, right? It's very narrow minded. It's very one size fits all, which isn't reality.
Yeah. Okay. Another one is traditional masculinity, which often refers to stoicism, dominance, leadership, emotional restraint, providing financially, and physical strength. So, all of those things in and of itself aren't inherently wrong or bad. It's just when it's all combined and it gets ingrained in someone as like, this is the way to be legit, to be deemed as successful or to be valuable, and I have to be this way and everybody else should be this way. That's when it becomes a problem, especially when I think of physical strength. So you're saying if you can't bench press 700 pounds, that you're not good or worthy or valuable.
Yeah. It's like, don't help me lift this table. I'm going to lift it myself.
Yeah.
And then you break your back.
And the emotional restraint, yes, having that emotional regulation is really important, generally speaking, but also you're not a robot. So there are going to be moments, many moments in this life of ours where we're going to be sad. We're going to be frustrated. We're going to be anxious. And it is important to be able to identify that and then sit with it and know how to let it flow through you. Especially this concept of stoicism, I think can be really problematic. Like, nope, I'm not going to be impacted by anything because I'm a man. And society doesn't help. I know
Really doesn't.
Guys are conditioned from early on to be that way. What does everyone say when a little boy cries? Don't cry. Be strong.
Big boys don't cry.
Yeah. Be a man. Like, I'm 4.
Right.
And I'm feeling really sad that I can't eat ice cream for dinner. Or I wasn't able to color at school. I had to pay attention and I'm sad. And so boys from early on are conditioned that way. And so that certainly has to change. But it is great to be a person who's not constantly like falling apart, like emotionally, right? Because we have to work and we have to do other things like that. And so again, if you can master the skill of emotional regulation, that's great. But to never, ever open up.
Yeah, those are the two that stuck out to me, the stoicism and the emotional restraint, because yes, like you said, it is good to have that high distress tolerance. Like you can withstand uncomfortable emotions for periods of time, but to never show emotions is problematic, because I always like to give this example with the kids that I work with, because a lot of them are this way, especially the guys. It's like having a suitcase and trying to stuff all these clothes in it. Eventually, you can't fit any more in there. And then what happens? The suitcase busts open and you get clothes everywhere, and then it's a problem, right? And that's what happens with these guys. They are having this quote unquote emotional restraint or being stoic, and then it takes one small minor inconvenience and they blow up. And it's like, if you were dealing with your emotions all this time, you wouldn't have these random blow ups all the time. Right. So I think it's so problematic for this to be quote unquote the way to be. And you said it, it is a problem in society. And that's one of the top reasons why male suicide rates are the way they are. Globally, they are like 3.5 times that of women. And in the US, it's like 4 times, right? And when you look state to state, the states that tend to have more conservative values have higher rates. I think like Wyoming is the highest. Well, I did research on this in grad school and kind of looked at the stats of all the different states and different countries. And you did start to see, that was my research. It was on how cultural norms play a part in suicide rates. And you did see this correlation with more traditional roles with higher suicide rates, right? So I think, and I might be wrong on this, but maybe the stats have changed, but I think in Wyoming it was like 5 times um, more than women. So, and a lot of that has to do with access and guns and things like that. So there is that too. But in general, it is a lot of these social norms of men have to be stoic, men have to be strong. You can't express your emotions, and it's really sad again that this is becoming common again.
Yeah. And I know people may be thinking, well, how do I even do that?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not taught,
Right.
right? How do I deal with my emotions? How do I process my emotions in a healthy way? And for a lot of people, especially men, the emotion that they do exude is anger.
Right.
But what we know as clinicians is oftentimes anger is a secondary emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're really dealing with a lot of times is profound sadness.
Yeah.
But like if grandma died, or there's a natural disaster, or you thought you were going to get promoted at work and they chose someone else, or you had a catastrophic injury playing a sport and it didn't allow you to continue, that messes you up.
Yeah.
That's a lot of times very traumatizing, but guys don't really know what to do with that sadness, with that deep hurt and pain. So you just become the guy who's super angry, flies off the handle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem.
It is.
Or sometimes it doesn't turn into that, but maybe vices. So you start to drink more to cope, to numb, or maybe drugs or gambling, or you become really controlling. And it becomes all about asserting this dominance with like your wife and your kids.
Right.
It will show up. I always tell my clients, if you don't deal with your emotions will deal with you.
Yeah. And I stole that from you. I say it to a lot of the people I work with too.
Yes. And an acronym I saw recently when someone said, you're not fine. A major thing happened and you're saying you're fine, but I can look and see that you're not. Fine means feelings inside not expressed. So let's sit with it.
Yeah.
What's actually going on right now? Let's talk about the impact of grandma's death. Let's talk about how tearing your ACL really impacted your life and it didn't allow you to move forward with your baseball career. You know, you're not a robot, you're a human.
Right.
And it's okay. And oftentimes people don't really have access to therapy, or they don't really have a strong social support system. So maybe they don't have a mom or a dad or a friend that they can cry to or that they can vent to. And so that's real too. And sometimes you don't even need that. Maybe you just need to sit with yourself and journal, or maybe just drive somewhere to a lake or to your favorite place and just let your mind drift, start to think, start to feel. And that often is very cathartic. Does it change what happened? No, but it allows you to just be real. And in turn, you're extending that self-compassion. Because for a long time, it's this self-abandonment. You're just not even connected with yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's just like grandma dying really did impact me because she was my rock. She was my everything. And now I feel lost. I don't feel like I'm rooted, like I have a foundation. It's like, okay, you know, then we can work through the grief process. But yeah, being able to feel is really important.
Yeah, I know that's a common thing that a lot of men in this movement use as ammunition for why women can't be in leadership, because they're too emotional, quote unquote. And anger is an emotion.
Yes.
Right?
I always think that. I'm like, you guys are so emotional.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm not even going to get into this administration that we have right now because they are making so many emotional decisions that are problematic. But yeah, you know, I think it's so important to be aware of your emotions. I remember years ago, I was working with a man, and we were working on emotional identification and exploration. And every session I would ask, yesterday, what emotions did you feel? It was like, I didn't really feel any. It's like, okay. You felt zero emotions yesterday. And so we would have to go hour by hour. Like, okay, you woke up. What were you feeling in that moment? It's like, I was kind of tired. Okay, that's an emotion. You were feeling tired, right? And then you were feeling hungry. And then on the way to work, you're running late. So you were feeling anxious. Like there's all these emotions that you're feeling. But if you are not aware of them, you just think nothing is happening. And there's so much that's happening emotionally for everyone. And if you're not aware of them, they're going to come out in other ways, like you mentioned. And I think it's such a problematic ideology that this manosphere is advocating for, of just not expressing your emotions and being stoic. And you said it, you're not a robot.
A lot of times people don't have the language for any of this.
Right.
So a resource I like to use is the feelings wheel. So for anyone listening, just Google feelings wheel and it'll show you this really colorful wheel where at the center of it are the dominant feelings of
Right.
happiness or joy, anger, sadness, and then the middle layer will be more of a specific emotion, and then the outer layer will be a hyper specific emotion, again stemming from those core emotions. And a lot of my clients, when they see that, they're like, oh. So I was feeling embarrassed.
Yeah.
That was the main feeling with this situation, or I was feeling displeased. So once people have that language in their back pocket, they'll be able to move forward with life and access those emotions more easily.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the last terms we'll talk about is this concept of a dread gain. That's trying to create insecurity or fear of loss in a partner to increase attraction. So essentially, it's emotionally manipulative, emotionally abusive, things that guys are doing to tear a woman down. I saw this on TikTok and a person was saying, oh my gosh, this has happened in my relationship. And an example could be someone is asking their guy how they look in an outfit and they're like, yeah, you don't look as big as I thought that you would look.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's nice. And it's like, whoa.
These backhanded compliments.
Yeah. Or someone gets a promotion at work and they tell their partner and the guy's like, oh, I'm really surprised that they chose you. But yeah, congrats. That's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Why are you surprised?
Yeah.
So it's like, but the first thing, oh, am I fat? And then the second thing is, am I not competent or intelligent enough to get that? So it's like constantly trying to humble the girl, not let her head get too big, or like she's wearing makeup and it's like, hey, how do I look? And oh, I didn't think you needed all of that. But no, yeah, it looks good. It's like,
yeah.
So am I ugly?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is very synonymous with bullying, right? Like you will tear other people down because you don't feel good about yourself, so you can feel better about yourself, right? And it's this concept of like kind of constantly keeping these women on a leash, right? Kind of keeping them seeking you out. And yeah, like you said, tearing down their confidence. If they come in all confident, it's like, that's not going to work because if you're confident, that means you could lead me.
Yes.
But if you need me, then you won't leave me as easily, right? So it's tearing down their confidence and making them need you and need your validation, because they may sprinkle in some validation there, but it's so sparse that it creates this desire to get that one actual compliment, So if you're getting all these tear downs, it's like, but he does compliment me sometimes, so let me just keep, and it kind of creates this cycle, this abusive cycle where you're trapped and you feel trapped and the men have you. And so it's really, really sad that it is so common that guys do this, because again, they just don't feel okay with themselves.
So that segues into the clinical side of things. Of course, as clinicians, we are psychoanalyzing and just trying to understand the why behind it. And so it reminded me of the Manosphere documentary that we saw on Netflix.
Yeah.
where the filmmaker really wanted to understand why these men were the way that they were. So we asked them about their childhood, and every single person had trauma in their childhood
Mm-hmm.
that was never processed.
Yeah.
For one of them, it was not having a dad in the home. So he was dealing with abandonment wounds, rejection wounds. Another guy experienced extreme abuse and neglect in his childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really does a number on
Yeah.
a kid whose brain is still developing. It disrupts a lot. They don't have a strong foundation. So there's no sense of self. They feel possibly that maybe it was their fault that their dad
Mm-hmm.
wasn't there, or it was their fault that they got abused. And so it creates insecurities,
Mm-hmm.
and it creates someone who may have a thought that, okay, if I can just be strong, if I can just be successful,
Mm-hmm.
then I will be okay because I'll experience safety.
Yeah.
And a lot of times this may be conscious, but it also may be subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, for a lot of these people, when they grow up, it turns into, okay, I just want to be physically fit. So I'm going to go
Yeah.
into the gym, or I just want to be successful professionally. So I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to get into crypto, or, a lot of these guys don't want to do the traditional path. And so let me get a lot of money. Let me have a great body. And then I will finally be worthy. I will
Yeah.
finally have arrived. And so they do all these things to reach their goals. And then it's like, okay, I need a partner who's going to be my equal.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to hear your thoughts about what you think is going on clinically with people like this.
Yeah, I just see a lot of insecurity with a lot of it, right? And like you said, they are doing these things to make themselves feel better about themselves, because for a lot of them, they had childhoods that were so out of their control that they seek this hyper controlled adulthood, right? Where they can control how much money they make, they can control what kind of women they have, they can control their women in general, right? Like they just seek that control because it feels safe, because not being in control is very unsafe for them. So I think a lot of it has to do with that, but also they just don't feel good about themselves because of the abuse, because of the trauma that they've experienced, or if they were bullied, right? Like there's a lot of these things that people do to overcompensate for their childhoods. And so I just see a lot of just really insecure men masking with this hyper masculine mask. And when I see these men, I just see insecure, hurting little boys.
Yes.
And so there is a level of compassion I have for them. But then when I see what they're doing and the harm that they're causing, obviously there's a lot of anger and frustration there too. But I just wish a lot of them were in therapy, and actually doing the work to process through all of this and realize they don't need to do any of this to feel good about themselves. They don't need to do any of this to have a fulfilling life. Like they don't need to tear other people down, like the Dread game, right? Where they're tearing the women down so they feel better about themselves or keep them on a leash or whatever. Like all of that is just rooted in insecurity. And it's really sad to see. But if any of that goes away, they crumble, right? And so there is this kind of like need to keep that up. And I fear for their futures, really. Like, yes, they have a lot of money. Yes, they have all this flashy stuff, but I just fear what would happen if they lost that. If the economy tanked, or if they got injured and they weren't able to go to the gym every day, if they got some debilitating disease, right? Like there's all of these things that they place their worth in that are temporary. They're not core to who they are as people. They're placing all this value on material things and this temporary things that aren't inherently who they are, because I don't know if they know who they are.
Yeah, that part.
So I think from a clinical perspective, I think it's really sad, and it makes me really empathize with them and feel really sad for them. They think they have it all, and they really don't have a lot. There was a quote I had seen. I'm really into quotes lately, but there was a quote I had seen years ago that said, "Some people are so poor, all they have is money."
Mm.
Because money comes and goes, but it's the core of who you are, who you believe yourself to be, that really sustains you in life, that really gives you that gratification in life. And there was actually research. One of my professors in grad school talked about it. He said there is research behind the whole money doesn't buy happiness. Now, he did say it does to a certain point, and I think that threshold was about $400,000 or so.
Yes.
But after $400,000, when you're making that much money, your sense of worth and your happiness tends to start going down. And it's this rat race that they're constantly in. And I cannot think of a more stressful way to live than to constantly try to keep up with all of the stuff that you have. I wouldn't want it, like as much as I would love to be on vacation all the time and have all this money and whatever, like all of that sounds great. But when you look at what it takes, at least the guys in this world, to get it, it's not appealing at all.
Yeah. And a lot of these guys that are the more successful ones are not just trying to be millionaires, they're trying to be
Or
multi-millionaires.
billionaires. Yeah.
Yeah. And it comes at a cost.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it's exploiting people, abusing people,
Mm-hmm.
and possibly engaging in criminal activity.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And what's so interesting is that as you were talking, I'm like, okay, you don't even know who you are. I think a lot of them could benefit from some inner child work, of
Mhm.
course, trauma therapy. But also, why do you have to put women down?
Mm-hmm.
Why can you not just stand on your own? Why do you have to engage in misogyny?
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes it's a deep hatred for women.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember there was a season where I was watching content and women were saying men hate women. Like when egregious things would happen, whether it was in the news or you just hear about just guys cheating on women just left and right. And it's just like, you don't love me. You don't respect me. You don't value me. Some of you guys actually hate women.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you should not be with women, right?
Right.
But it's like, wow, in order to feel anything, you have to put someone else down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the exact opposite of feminism. We weren't trying to put men down. We were, again, trying to just have a seat at the table.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't want crumbs anymore. We wanted more, as we should. Again, very similar to the civil rights movement. That's what we were wanting as Black people. And so all these huge personalities in this world, like Andrew Tate and the guy from Fresh and Fit, it's like you're deeply insecure. You're a little boy who severely traumatized or neglected, and you're just trying to get some healing. You're just trying to get some relief. You're going about it the wrong way, though.
Yeah.
You can still do all that work and leave us the hell alone.
Yeah. Now, as a caveat, I mean, obviously within the feminist movement, there are extremes to that too,
Yeah.
right? So there are people who claim to be feminists who really are man haters. And unfortunately, I think people from this manosphere movement, they look at that as the example of feminism. And they say, feminists just hate men because look at this example. And they might be justified in the example they give. But as a movement and as an ideology, feminism is not, like you said, a movement that is against men or hates men. It really is just creating equality.
Agreed. And let the record reflect the official definition of feminism is the belief in an advocacy for full social, economic, and political equality for all genders. It aims to dismantle patriarchal structures and eliminate discrimination, ensuring everyone has equal rights and opportunities, regardless of gender, identity, race, or class.
Boom. There it is.
That's
Just
all it
equality.
is. Yeah. I like that you pointed it out. Yes, there are extremes with everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's important in listening to conversations like this to understand those nuances.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we do a pretty good job at that with whatever we're talking about. But just a reminder to people listening or watching that we are not speaking in absolutes.
Right.
But yeah, to wrap everything up, I am concerned about a lot of things, especially this next generation
Mm-hmm.
in particular, because a lot of these people are going to be in positions of power.
Right.
They're going to impact our policies. And that sucks because it's very harmful. And problematic, and we've come so far. We've made a ton of strides. So it really breaks my heart to know that we're going backwards. Some of these people in this community believe that women shouldn't vote.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I am worried about it, but I'm hoping that because it's become so mainstream, there's documentaries and viral clips on social media, there's people on the opposite side of things speaking up and sharing their 2 cents too. So when these kiddos are doing searches, hopefully they'll start to see those kind of videos as well.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, the way the algorithm typically works, it kind of just shows you the same thing over and over. So they kind of just get sucked in this rabbit hole.
I'm trying to hold on to some hope though, because
Yeah.
otherwise I'll be crying.
Yeah, I am concerned too, and mainly because of the fact that there is a crisis when it comes to men and boys as a whole, and unfortunately, they're finding the solution to be this red pill mindset and this manosphere situation because we're seeing the statistics of boys going to college less and less, boys achieving less and less as they're getting older and as society is moving on. And we see just a lot of problems within the male gender or male sex.
Yeah, like the male loneliness epidemic.
Yeah. And a lot of that has to go back to patriarchy and this manosphere mindset, right? Of being stoic and not sharing your emotions, because we say it all the time. Vulnerability breeds intimacy. So if you're not being vulnerable with the people around you, you're not going to be intimate with anyone, emotionally with anyone. And that's how you make friends, right? You have to be vulnerable to make friends. And so many guys aren't doing it. And they're just in these silos by themselves watching all these videos. And it's bringing some sense of control, right? And it's bringing some peace for them, something they can latch onto as a source of identity. And I think that's really the crux of what is happening with this movement. You're having a lot of hurt and wounded boys that are really struggling, seeking something out to feel something, and this is offering them that. And that's a problem. So I think we need to fix a lot of the systems in our country as a whole to help kids in general, but especially boys, and create more resources and education on how to really nurture boys in our society and how to meet their needs, their unique needs growing up. Because even though there are many similarities between boys and girls, there are some differences too, just in how they process things, how they develop emotionally. And I don't think we are doing a good job as a society raising boys. And so these
Yeah.
internet personalities are doing it for us.
Yeah. It just reminded me how boys are conditioned from a very early age to succeed in sports. You know, you got to go to practice and you have to score every single game. And if you get hurt, can't cry, suck it up and take us to championship. And when one sport is done, you got to get into the next sport. Academics is, for a lot of dads, especially, or for a lot of teachers, it's not important. Kind of put that on the back burner. And the focus is just success.
Yeah.
Winning, winning, winning.
Right.
I'm like, this is a sport. I'm not a sports person. So maybe a hot take, but you're kicking a ball around, right? And I know you're learning teamwork and you're learning discipline. There's so many other life skills that are important. But at the end of the day, you're kicking a ball around.
Yeah, it's a game.
It's a game. So what about focusing on your schoolwork? What about focusing on expressing your emotions, being nice to your siblings, being a curious person, learning about the world around you? So to your point, like we really have to start at a young age and maybe not be so incredibly sports obsessed, but let's find to play sports, but hey, let's learn about geography.
Yeah.
You know, let's learn about what's happening in our community and maybe do some volunteering and things like that. Of course, sports is great, again, for a lot of reasons, especially maybe wanting to get a scholarship for college and things like that. But for a lot of families, that is just the only thing that matters in that little boy's life. And that's just not the most important thing in life.
Yeah, not at all. I'm excited to raise kids with you.
I know, me
because
too.
It's going to be so fun. And obviously, we're not going to be perfect. And I know that both of us will be aware of some of these things and be able to raise emotionally healthy kids.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not looking for a supreme athlete.
Mhm.
I'm not even looking for a little prodigy Mensa level academic. I want to have children who are emotionally intelligent. I want to have a kiddo who's compassionate.
Hmm.
I want to have a kiddo who's nice and kind
Yeah.
and considerate and respectful. Like, I will be so proud.
Yeah. So for those of you guys who are listening or watching, we would love to hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts on this whole manosphere culture, this red pill culture, and why do you think we are where we're at as a society? We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And as always, we want to thank you guys for watching, for tuning in. Share this with anyone who could benefit from our conversation, or if you've never heard of this and this is something that you feel like people should know about, let them know.
Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so our little show can grow. Thank you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Later.